So at this point, I've had the Steam Deck in my possession for 1 full year. It's not technically today, rather I believe it was delivered to me in April 9th of 2022, but it is effectively a little bit over a year since I've just been playing a ton of games on it, making a lot of videos, tinkering with what the device can do, and really just reflecting on how that impacts the gaming landscape at scale when you consider we now have this amazing handheld portable PC. And even though I'm slightly late with this video at this point, I did want to go ahead and make a video about what it's been like having the Steam Deck for 1 year. Now, I'm not going to do a technical breakdown of every single software update that's happened for the Steam Deck or anything like that, or cover all of the major milestones that it's enjoyed, because that would be a really long video. Rather, this is more of a subjective look at my personal experience with the deck, starting all the way at the beginning, what the middle part was like, and then really kind of bringing us up to present and how the Steam Deck has sort of just changed my approach to PC gaming. So all that being said, let's just go ahead and start at the beginning. And it's funny because while I do know that my Steam Deck was delivered April 9th of last year, I can't remember the exact date when I actually placed that pre-order. All I know is that the day when they did go live and allowed you to put down like a $5 deposit for whichever Steam Deck you wanted, I went ahead and jumped on the top tier model. Which, in retrospect, was a really weird choice for me because, again, everything leading up to that point, there was almost nothing about me that was a PC gamer. I was predominantly console. To this day, I still play a lot of console games, but I think the reason I decided to go ahead and take the leap was really a fewfold. The first was that, as a gaming PC, the Steam Deck seemed a lot more like a console to me and naturally sort of served as like this Trojan horse of sorts that would kind of get me back into the world of PC gaming, because I did have a Steam library at the time, because in truth, I did have a gaming rig back around 2015. The thing is, I only really got that gaming rig because I really wanted to experience VR, and at the time we didn't have like the Meta Quest or anything like that yet. It was really just like the Oculus Rift, and I think there might have been 1 or 2 others, but because Steam did have VR games often cheaper than what you could have gotten from the Oculus Marketplace at the time, that's why I had a gaming PC at the time, but ultimately it would go on to just sort of rot, and the fact that I wasn't really using any PC games, at all at the time, made it a really weird decision to go ahead and jump on the Steam Deck. Not to mention everything that I was doing on the channel at the time was largely centered around console games and portables, and while the Steam Deck is definitely a portable and, again, feels like a console to me compared to a standard PC for gaming, it still felt like a really weird choice. But ultimately, and obviously, I did end up keeping the Steam Deck, and I'm really glad that I did for a few key reasons outside of the fact that it is, predominantly the content that I cover here on this channel. For starters, despite the fact that it was just like this big, beefy boy, it was still pretty comfortable as a handheld gaming device. Plus, it was very cool to be able to dive into a lot of AAA releases, even some new releases on the scale of something like Elden Ring, or games that previously I might have gotten as Switch ports in much greater visual fidelity, and with a whole lot more flexibility in terms of the control scheme. Not to mention there were certainly AAA experiences that you would never find on the Nintendo Switch, things like Grand Theft Auto 5 or Horizon Zero Dawn, for example. And then putting aside any native PC games that you could install and play directly off of the device, there was also a staggering amount of flexibility to dip into games from completely different sources, whether you're doing emulation, or if you wanted to fire up an alternate storefront like Epic Games, or if you just want to stream games from someplace like, Xbox Game Pass, or from your local systems if you want to stream from an established gaming rig, or something like your PS5 via Chiaki. And beyond just personally having a blast with like this slick new gaming device that, again, really opened the door for PC gaming for me again, I found that there was a whole lot of interest in the Steam Deck. And I don't just mean like searching on the web and just seeing a lot of people were talking about it, even though they definitely were, but rather I noticed as soon as I made a video about the Steam Deck that I got a whole lot more views than I normally got on this channel. And while that was exciting, it also put me in a little bit of a weird spot, because everything that I'd done up to that point was almost exclusively focused on console gaming to some degree. So the idea of switching gears into PC gaming when that was a world I was just way out of the loop on felt a little strange and just straight up alien, really. But ultimately I found that a massive amount of the console games that I'd want to talk about were either directly available on Steam for play on the deck already, or through workarounds like emulation or, again, alternative storefronts, I could make them available on the Steam Deck. And because I just really like to have things streamlined and organized anyways, I figured I would go ahead and roll the dice on just focusing all of my content efforts very narrowly into the Steam Deck, and by extension kind of the Steam ecosystem. So that was pretty much the beginning of my journey with the Steam Deck. Again, a system that I wasn't sure I was going to enjoy that much because I was kind of lukewarm on PC gaming as a whole, but as it turns out I enjoyed it very much, and it opened up a lot of exciting new content opportunities for me here on the channel. But every new thing will eventually lose its luster on a long enough timeline, right? I mean, gaming hardware in particular, because eventually new hardware will come out that supplants the original. But even now, a year later, my excitement for the Steam Deck really hasn't waned that much, and I think that's for a few key reasons. For starters, again, there's just a constant and steady stream of new games coming out for the device. No, not every new release that drops on Steam runs great on the Steam Deck. That's why anytime that I do the videos about what's going to be coming out for Steam, I'm very careful to just say it's coming out for Steam and not necessarily Steam Deck, because usually we don't know if even a game that's verified for Steam Deck is going to run flawlessly, but by and large there are a lot of great new games that are just releasing constantly that you can enjoy on the Steam Deck. And for me, as somebody who came from that console background, I also get access to a lot of games that I wouldn't have otherwise that are, in early access or just indie darlings that would eventually get ported to consoles that, I would have just been waiting on otherwise. And while the shocking amount of games that you can find on the Steam Marketplace can be a little bit overwhelming at times, I have to say as kind of a scatterbrained buffet-style gamer, that definitely appeals to me since I tend to hop around a lot and really just like to, see what games seem appealing before I really settle into and just focus on one entirely. And naturally, as I started exploring things like emulation or alternate storefronts or streaming options like Game Pass or local streaming from the PS5, it became clear that at least for me personally, it would be the ultimate gaming handheld, and as of today, it still is. But then beyond the games, I also really appreciated that the operating system and the software that powers the Steam Deck just sort of kept getting better, and usually at a pretty rapid rate. Directly speaking, it benefited from things like 40Hz mode, which, allowed for this really nice compromise between fidelity and performance. It also had better interface responsiveness whenever you had a really large library at play. Per-game performance profiles made it really easy to make sure that a game played exactly the way you wanted it to whenever you decided to jump back in. And Valve's been great about continually adding a steady stream of more and more verified titles. And then indirectly, the community was and still is doing all sorts of interesting things with the Steam Deck. Whether that was things like custom boot screens, which eventually became kind of an official thing from Valve, EmuDeck, which obviously I'm a huge fan of, and then probably just a whole range of other tools that I've barely scratched the surface of and have not even really explored, things like Decky for example. And finally, I think the community itself played a really big role in keeping my personal excitement really high for the system this far into its life cycle. Whether that's, comments here, which are usually super great and I very much appreciate it, Twitter, Reddit, it just seems like you don't have to go very far to find really passionate fans of the Steam Deck who are also just really kind, well-meaning individuals who are willing to help out, even if you, just don't know something or have to ask what you think is a stupid question, which I tend to do a lot of. So yeah, in a nutshell, the middle of the first year with the Steam Deck was also really great for me, and a lot of that hype was maintained by things like community excitement, the steady stream of new games, and also just like the constant updates and tweaks that Valve continues to make to the software that powers the Steam Deck. But that brings us right up to present, where I really had to think about how the Steam Deck has impacted my gaming behavior after a year with this system. And I think the most significant thing that it's done is really just led me to playing a ton more games than I ever would have before. Now this is thanks largely to things like Steam sales or just finding other places you can buy Steam codes, but I have to say, even though I'm not necessarily beating more games than I've ever beaten before, I'm certainly jumping around and sampling more games than I've ever done probably in the entire history of my gaming. And I would say the second biggest way the Steam Deck has really impacted my gaming habits is that physical collecting has taken a huge dive for me. Now, I'll always be a physical collector, but I have to say, maintaining my physical collection of console games really isn't the priority that it used to be. Especially when a lot of those physical games I would have bought I can get way cheaper on PC, whether that's directly in the Steam Marketplace, or just shopping the sales at a bunch of third-party retailers who also provide Steam keys. But on the plus side, while my physical collecting of games may have gone downhill a little bit, my time playing older games from console eras has gone up dramatically thanks to emulation on the deck. It's just so much easier to revisit classics from my youth like Marvel vs. Capcom or Grand Theft Auto Vice City without having to haul out a retro console for the privilege. And that convenience has been really fulfilling whenever I just want to scratch that nostalgia itch. But by far the biggest thing that the Steam Deck has changed for me as a gamer, and if it's something I knew was going to happen, I knew it was a terrifying gateway drug and I would not escape it, is that it legitimized PC gaming for me once again for the first time in probably 20 years. Not just PC gaming itself and just appreciating the greater graphical fidelity that I get from playing on PC, but rather it also got me excited for PC hardware again, and as you can see back here, I actually did rebuild my old gaming rig and got very much into PC hardware again. So I've spent the past several weeks very much going through all of the latest and greatest components that I could use to build a new PC, and while that system looks nice, I assure you it is still filled with the innards of my aging 2015 machine. I just thought I would put it in a nicer outfit, as it were. So right right now, even though I'm running PC hardware that is about a decade old at this point, first off, it still holds up pretty decently, and I was surprised could play Cyberpunk 2077, albeit after a lot of patches that happened, clearly. But also, I do have some other parts lined up, and I'm sure I will be exploring that world further. So congratulations to Valve, because the Steam Deck absolutely dragged me kicking and screaming back into PC gaming, and really just the PC experience as a whole, despite the fact that I am just a filthy Mac guy. So yeah, interesting way to wrap up the first year with the Steam Deck. So yeah, at the end of the day, I would have to say that the Steam Deck has been a huge success in the marketplace, but then on a personal level, it's been a huge success for me as well, just because it has really reinvigorated my excitement for a lot of different games, and now we've really just come full circle back to PC gaming entirely, where I haven't really been absorbed in that world since like 2003. But hey, what about you? How has your first year with the Steam Deck been if you also were an early adopter? If you're not an early adopter and just got one recently, how do you think you will feel about the Steam Deck whenever you hit that 1 year mark? Let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for your time and hanging out here on the channel. It's been a tremendous first year doing content like this, and I can't wait to do a whole lot more of it. So yeah, as always, have an amazing day, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.